Next up, we have Ms. Erica Arya, India Head at Project Tech for Dev, a global initiative empowering non-profits with open source technology. We welcome you, ma'am. Mr. Harikumar, Director, Digital Education, Department of School Education and Literacy, Ministry of Education. Sir, we are very, very honored to have you. He spearheads national level digital initiatives, driving innovations and transformation across education ecosystem. Join us in welcoming Mr. Salim Khan, India Managing Director, Code ORG, where he works on leveraging technology to create societal impact across education, agriculture, digital identity, and language inclusion. We have Mr. Shrikant Gopalakrishnan, CTO at the Center for Open Societal Systems, where he works on leveraging technology to create societal impact across education and language-based inclusion. Requesting all our speakers to come on stage and maybe have a huge round of applause for this amazing panel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Um, Very excited to have this conversation with my panelists here. It is really a privilege to have the opportunity to moderate this. I'll start with saying and just setting a little bit of context before we jump into the questions, and I have a lot of them here for everyone here. I was asking Claude this morning, and I have these numbers from Cloud, and I tried to verify that with a couple of other tools. But there are about 550 million Indians who are under the age of 25 today in the country. All of them are going to have their careers, their livelihoods, and maybe even their lives very dramatically shaped by AI. We are going to move forward with this panel operating under that assumption that that is true and that that is going to happen to the next generation of young people. So this reality leads to a set of questions that become very imminent to answer. We are already in education systems today that are under a lot of stress. Teachers are overwhelmed. School infrastructure is limited. There is a lot of competition for time and for attention and for emphasis and focus. And in that world, we kind of have this almost impossible math problem that we have to solve for. How do we prepare these 500 million young people, the largest number of young people anywhere on the planet, and growing, with these critical tools, with these critical skills, with these critical AI literacies, so that they are employable, entrepreneurial, happy, meaningful contributors to the world and to the country in the future. AI is here. That is a reality already. We are seeing teachers experimenting with creating AI-generated lesson plans. We are seeing students using ChatGPT for their homework. We are seeing institutions, schools, colleges, higher ed, making decisions about how to use AI in various ways. Some great, some not so great. I think the question to answer and the question that this panel will try to address is not whether AI is here or not. The questions we will address will be, in a world where it is here, how do we kind of address this? How do we make sure that it isn't expanding the inequities and the divides, but is hopefully creating more opportunity and creating more value for everybody? These people here will not give us answers. They will probably leave us with more questions. And the goal here is not to try to solve this together. The goal here is to try to bring the nuance into the complexities of some of these questions and hopefully find common ground. I am very inspired by everyone over here. They spend a large part of their careers and their lives thinking about these questions and working on these topics. And so it is really a privilege to have the opportunity to chat with all of you. I will open with a very simple question. I would love to hear, and we can go one by one across the room for this question only. What is your definition of AI literacy? What does AI literacy mean to you from your context, from your perspective? And it would be fantastic if you don't agree with each other. Anyone can start. Carlos.
Thank you so much. So the way I like to think about it is
fundamental skills help build the brain. AI literacy helps protect the brain, and using AI properly helps amplify the brain. Without the first
Okay. What do you think?
requirement of having those fundamental skills, AI literacy basically becomes a crutch, the easy way out. And so we need to have all these three elements working together, with the first being the most paramount. You know, as human beings, we always take the path of least resistance. And if you have a know-it-all system that you can use, then that becomes your go-to system. So I think we can think about AI literacy, but in the context of helping build those fundamental skills.
I just share what I think around AI literacy. It's definitely for me not knowing, what's happening behind the scenes. It's not that I need to know what is the algorithm that's working behind, what is the coding that has been done. As a simple user, I would like start from thinking of what can AI do, what it cannot do, how can I leverage it? Maybe by improving the questions that I ask, uh, even the responses that I get. Am I able to think of what is it that I can pick from that response, right? So I'm using AI more for as an assistant, more as a collaborator, a think partner for myself, and not something whom I can at this stage blindly, trust and believe in. So definitely that personal reflection, my personal thoughts to tie in to what gets suggested, for example, from the ChatGPT. So it helps in structuring. I understand that what it is good at doing, so like patterns, right? Summarization. These are like a couple of things. So how I can leverage it? So that understanding is how I would define AI literacy. And yes, just closing on this is also what is the data privacy? What is it within the data privacy scope? I need to be educated on as to how much I need to share about myself. I would say that is what AI literacy means to me.
Yeah, I'll start with the fear of sounding repetitive, so I'll try to structure my thoughts differently and be a little provocative here as well, and because there are a lot of conversations for the right reasons, exposure for children to AI too early, and Erica alluded a bit to that, saying, I'm not sure right now. I'm a father of two young children who are currently learning and getting ready for their future life. And for the longest, ChatGPT was not allowed in the house. I would say I would not want you to download ChatGPT because I don't want you to be killing your creativity, etc. But guess what? I mean, and genuinely so, I think, especially in the last 2 years, let's acknowledge the fact how AI is influencing our life. AI is here, it's real, it's changing rapid, and it's influencing our lives in many ways every day, faster than what we can think. So my definition of AI literacy, and more for the larger population of the 83% of our schools which are in the rural areas, my definition would be very simple. It's about firstly ensuring that no child is left behind. So it is about power, it is about equity, it is about agency to ensure that every child at least knows what is AI, AI karta kya hai, how is it making decisions, and simple things like that. So if I have to put it in a definition, it would be something like, providing the knowledge, skills, and the future-ready attributes to our children, to ensure that they are able to live and thrive in a AI-enabled world. And generally, this is for all children and not for the privileged children. Generally, I have lots of thoughts on, the use of AI, etc. But I'll come to that. Thank you.
I'll start with a different. I joined a little late this afternoon. I got to know that most of the people who are sitting in the front rows, post lunch session, they found it to be comfortable in the back rows, even after the entries were announced. Please can you come forward? But then the problem actually lies not in the lunch. Problem lies in the panel topic. Scaling AI in education responsibility. Cut scaling. Cut AI. Cut responsibility. What remains? Education. The moment you say education, we become backbenchers. So now, how do you tie literacy into it? So how many of you sleep at 8 p.m.? Difficult for us to see you. How many of you sleep at 8 p.m., 8:30, 9? It's Bangalore, yes? Okay, 10:30, I'll increase now. 2 hours for traffic. 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12, 12 to 2:30. So what happens between 11 to 2:30 is the AI literacy. This is what you need to be educated about. See, we are actually giving you AI in a different format without knowing what it is. You might agree, disagree, which is good, but you have been pulled into it without your knowledge. Now you cannot stop, you check your status, half the people look your status at 2 a.m. Then you get satisfied, okay, 222 people looked at my status at 2 a.m. Now what are we taking this? So now comes the literacy part. Now how I can make you literate in that to ensure that AI is to help you. Now you stay awake till 12:30, 2:30, it's good for 2-3 years, then it's good for the medical people. So what type of literacy? We come from the education. I'm representing Department of School Education. So I'll say which level you want to take. Do you want to take according to the NEP structure? No, you want to take it to the preparatory foundation, which level? If I say you have to take it to the preparatory level, I'm contradicting my Pragita guidelines, which we released in 2020, where we talk about screen time. So do you want to give AI as a screen time? Or do you want to give AI in a way that it is not affecting the child, but differently helping them? So do you want to really go and teach them this is AI? First write, instead of ABC, read AI. They definitely need to know. You don't want to be left out. They need to know. But how we are going to bring it? So do you want to start with the computational thinking and then build it into a literacy and say that this is our vision, this is how we want to go? How do you build a structure? And education is for everyone. How do you even take it to the adults? And how do you also take it to loop and corner, that point? So how do you bring that is what I would be definitely talking about. But in my opinion, at least we would say that AI literacy is not just going and printing a textbook through NCRT or your SCRT and saying, this is AI literacy, go read. How do you actually drive it to them so that they understand what is it, they're able to take benefits out of it?
I'm going to just follow up on what you said because I think it is very relevant. I think all of us remember that at least in high school, I was asked to use log tables, not my scientific calculator. Okay, we were given beatings on the knuckles if we actually sneaked a calculator in. AI is a tool. It is for majority, 99% of the population, it is something that is going to be in the background. What the initial stages of what we're going through right now is to say, is it really working as per plan or is it actually hallucinating, as they say nowadays in the AI part? Okay, but that problem to solve is not for 99% of the population. That's probably a problem for this group to solve. Okay, so for majority of the learners, the students, the people who are getting educated, AI is just a tool that's in the background. For the initial stages, we need to be cognitive of the fact that that may not be 100% correct. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you everybody for all of those ideas. I was trying to summarize some of it. I heard AI is not just a chatbot. AI is what's staring back at you when you scroll on social media. AI is what you see on television. AI is kind of this experiential thing, this tool that kind of finds its way into your life in various ways. I heard AI literacy is building problem solving skills. I heard AI literacy is something that shouldn't be limited to the walls of the classroom, should find its way to all learners of all ages. So I really appreciate all of those perspectives. How do we do that for 550 million people in the country who are under the age of 25, who are going to be impacted by, in various ways, by this technology? How do we kind of imagine the rollout of a program of this kind in a country where you walk 5 kilometers and the local language changes, the context changes, the cultural background changes, the various realities of the classroom and the livelihoods and the types of work people do looks very different. I would love to learn from all of you, because all of us here have been part of pilot programs. All of us have been part of early stage initiatives that we have taken to some scale. The 0 to 1 can be well understood, but how do we do the 1 to 100 when we kind of really have to ramp up a program in a very rapid way, given to some extent the urgency of also needing to do this pretty quickly in the country, given how timely this is. And unlike the first question, I do not want everybody to necessarily have to respond to this. There are many more questions we can go through, so maybe just 2 or 3 of you, whoever feels most passionate about this, can jump in any order.
How many of you understand metrics in the Indian system? How many of you understand in millions? How many of you understand in millions? How many of you understand in crores? Then I'll stick to crores. I doubt on the 550 million. I'll tell you. School education system, we have 25 crores in there. 24.69 as of you guys think. So I'm just for calculation, 25 crores in there. Higher education is 4.5 crores. Say 5. We have, when we talk about education, we talk about only students. What are the teachers? We have 1 crore. When you talk about students, 25 crore plus 5, you also have to capture their parents. So the ecosystem also consistent. So what you're roughly talking about is 75 crore. So now you can correct the 550 million, this is the work group, but the ecosystem consists their family also, and also the teachers. So that is what you're actually going to target. So any intervention that you do, it starts from the young age till the old age, but within that ecosystem, how does that go? How do you force fit? And on the pilot, typically do maybe like you select 2-3 places, you do for scale at 100. So where do we do pilots? You select the best of best schools, the best of best teachers, and where you have 5G, 6G, so many Gs, and then you actually build it there. But where do you actually need to do? In a shadow area where there is not even a 2G network. Now, if something works there is 100% sure, you can be confident it will work in all the other places. So we'll have to rethink the way how we do pilot. Or I'm not saying that don't do it here, but you also consider those places. Typically, you go up in the hills in Uttarakhand, for you to catch your breath, it takes 2 days. When you come back, you'll have breathing quickly. But then go do it there, come back, and then say, yes, now I'm building it for scale, so that it reaches everyone. I've considered. You'll have to consider the diversity. So if you are able to build this is where you will have to have ecosystem partners. You cannot do it separately. You cannot do it separately. So how do you go hand in hand with people and get that support, build that ecosystem, and bring it down?
One thing I want to extend on that, sir. So I want to borrow from an example from a different domain. I think we've been working with agriculture. I think there was this Bharat Vista that was launched recently, something that we are working on. And one of the ways to actually bridge the divide or the exclusion that is happening with non-digitally enabled people is to make the back-end AI available through our landline. Okay, telephone lines where people can ask a question on agri advisory in the language of their choice, and basically the answer comes back to them in the language of their choice. This is what Bharat Vistar and Mahavistar and all of those enable today. And given that reality, I think there is a parallel that we have to draw to learning and education as well, where we should be able to provide all of that knowledge, information, etc. in the language of their choice. And potentially for adult education, it could be voice-based to start with. Okay, it may not have to be text and other forms of learning. But I think we need to think differently, and we need to basically expand the horizons of what technology can offer us as tools to be able to make the reach wider. And it's possible today, and the possibilities are just expanding. We just need to be creative, is the way I feel.
And I just want to kind of react to what both of you said there. Thank you for those comments. So it seems like there is a model for delivery of an AI literacy curriculum that might not be computer dependent. That could be done in a potentially offline way, in a hybrid way, using other tools, other technologies, other means, other modalities. And I find that very fascinating. And thank you both for bringing up those points. I would love to hear from other panelists on maybe a reaction to that. What does an AI literacy curriculum look like in the absence of a computer? What might be the components of such a program?
And I'll share from our experience. Sorry. So I represent an organization called Code.org, which, and for those of you know it, I can very confidently say it's one of the most robust platforms for computational thinking, coding, and AI curriculum. All developed in the US by pedagogy experts, and I have that fascinating role of bringing it to India. And there is, I want to talk about a bit of our experiences over the last 1 year specifically. So as rightly said, so when we brought all of that to India, the pilots were in the best schools, who had connectivity, which had, and of course, the results were great. It was having excellent learning outcomes, etc. The question mark was, how do you scale this? Because when you start looking at, you did something in some schools in a district, even to expand it across the districts, there was huge disparity between the way the school infrastructure was. So there is a way for India, it has to be fully contextualized, the curriculum, to suit the needs of the Indian classrooms. As you rightly said, we have some amazing unplugged activities which we first tested and piloted for schools which, leave alone connectivity, they have a challenge of even electricity. Some days children would show up in school and there is no electricity in the classrooms. But there are unplugged activities that teachers use to impart that to children, and those are the best periods. I mean, some feedback is the participation has been amazing. The children who are outliers and who are doing well in some of those activities are not the best children who are academically the best in the class. So it's also bringing out, taking away inequity in some ways in the classroom also, where children feel they can learn in a way which is not intimidating. Sometimes you put children in front of a machine and they wouldn't know what to do with it. And of course, there are language barriers, there is all of that to be sorted for. We are on a mission to, correct that. But yes, it's a humble start, but I'm acknowledging everything that sir was saying. It's just that having the right solutions which work, there is evidence that's coming out that that is the way forward, and we'll look at how we'll keep scaling.
I just want to add a point on, like when we're talking about scale, generally it's the breadth that we talk about. But I also want, because, one of the comments was also that if you look into the rural or in the government schools, it's the teacher whom we will be leveraging the most when it comes to using AI to disseminate, teaching in the classroom. So I would also say that the pace at which technology works, right? You're working on a lot of data and it can give you so many insights. But then will human capacity become a bottleneck? Because you've got now so much of insights, but is your teacher having that capacity to actually translate, work on those insights to bring about a change? So I also wanted to just bring in this point that with technology, scale is also like the depth that you go into, because it has the power to give you so many insights, especially with AI getting integrated. But are we able to, as human, able to keep pace with the insights that we get? So that's one lens that I wanted to bring.
Yeah, so just, I think when we're talking about scale, we should think about, are we discussing how we can scale AI-powered education, which I'm a big fan of, versus scaling AI literacy? These things we tend to sometimes they tend to sort of flow into each other. And it's the difference between having AI help you to learn how to think, help you to learn, versus having AI do the learning for you. So as long as we differentiate between these two, it also affects how we approach the problem.
I mean, little bit of a sparring on that one. For me, I think if you look at it, AI literacy, the way you're looking at AI literacy, right? Maybe something that's passe. I mean, it's basically under the hood. You don't even need to talk about AI literacy. It's about using a toolkit, right? And the way you need to scale is to understand how the new world works. And the teaching is going to be about not saying you understand AI, but how can I kind of leverage what's available in the ecosystem for me to do what I want to do? So maybe AI literacy isn't even necessary as a terminology that to be used in the ecosystem.
There also comes another question, right? The scale which we are talking about. I'll give some statistics. Statistics are available on UNICE dashboard, publicly available. 54% of schools in India, government, aided, private, others, have internet connection. The remaining don't have. In computers, smart class, ICT labs, all those things also, we are not 100, we don't have 100% coverage yet. So when we talk about AI literacy and all the other things, one hand, it's a double-edged sword. One hand we say, you'll have to bridge the urban-rural divide. So we are saying that you'll also have to push it. So now if I'm pushing it in a way, it is device dependent. I mean, not increasing the divide. So this point is also correct. Where how do you take it as AI for education or literacy? This point is also correct. But then how do you make it in an independent manner so that I can take it to each and every person, irrespective of whether they have a device or not? And I can physically need to give them a device, even if it is not available. It's going to take us time. But until then, are you going to keep them away from AI? Or are you going to introduce them to AI, but in a way how it is still beneficial to them where they can understand? Good for thought.
Thank you for that comment. First of all, I love it when my panelists start piggybacking on each other. It makes my job very easy. I really appreciate you, Hari sir, for bringing, kind of consolidating some of the ideas that were shared here by Carlos and everyone else as well. That there might be many versions, maybe many flavors, many avatars of an AI curriculum. Might not even be called an AI curriculum. It might just be foundational literacy, new ways of doing things, new modalities of problem solving, whatever that might look like. And we absolutely do not need a one-size-fits-all solution for a country that is so diverse. So good. So we've talked about scale. We've talked, of course, talking about AI in education. Let's talk a little bit about the responsible bit. How do we do this in a way in which it advocates for trust, advocates for safety? It is centering safety and responsible use first. Because the reality is, whether we like it or not, a lot of our students are on platforms that are having them actively consume AI-generated content. Most of the LLMs are being built either in San Francisco or in Beijing on data sets that have very little context or understanding of the Indian audience, of what happens at the grassroots or what happens on the ground. Just curious to your reactions to that. What can we do proactively so that we don't look back at this moment half a decade later and regret certain decisions we made around safety, around responsibility, around trust when we build and deploy programs, curriculum, tools, technologies? And I actually would love for everybody to maybe share an opinion here, because I know, Erica, you work with non-profits and giving them the tools to deliver and build AI capabilities. And so I'd love to hear your perspective there. I know many of you work in the classroom. I know you work in other sectors outside of education. I'm just curious to know how trust can be established, responsible use can be established in all of these ways.
I probably just give a short example. Sure. Right? So I think there is an initiative that is being done called AXL, which is assisted language learning, assisted math learning, etc. And one of the derivatives of the analysis of the students is when you put them in front of a system, they actually are much freer in terms of interacting with it than interacting with another individual, because they feel that they're not being judged. Now, I think that has a consequence in terms of us making sure that safety net is actually preserved. which means any online system that you are actually exposing children to, especially we're talking about children here, okay? Tracking and any form of judgment paradigms that come into play should be avoided in its entirety, and it should be a safe space for them. And that is going to be the foremost thing that we need to look at. Everything else is secondary.
So I'll take your point on the data sets. Yeah, I'll go to specific terms, right? So how do you want to train your data set? You want to train it on London Bridges falling down or Bodivale Baba or Chanda Mama. Basically, that's it. So now, if I'm training it on a particular set and bringing it, then all my conversation is going to be revolving only around those data sets. So I'll also bring you the point of bias. How many of you use Wi-Fi in your residence? How many of you are aware about routers? Routers are the one that give Wi-Fi. How many of you know that routers have a bias? Are you aware routers have bias in it? In router, you can block few devices or allow few devices. What is it called? MAC filtration. There is a very layman term which is being used for that. Blacklisting and whitelisting. Isn't that an bias? Black and white? Without even our knowledge, we've been using the same thing. So how do you ensure that this bias does not come into AI, where we don't own the data sets, where we don't know what is happening inside the entire operational crunch? But then we are exposing the entire fraternity onto it. So that is where we'll have to be very cautious.
So I'm going to take like a slightly opposite view. I think we are over-indexing on problems like bias. I'm not saying those problems don't exist. I think the biggest problem that we have is convenience. The fact that it is so convenient. I mean, okay, let's take, we gave an example about routers. Like all of us know, how many of us know that we should not be using the same password across different websites? Can I just see some hands raised? And how many of us still use the same password across different websites, right? And this is not like a one-year-old story. This is a decade-long story. If something is easy enough, it becomes irresistible to use. And if it is so convenient, we will naturally tend to overuse it and lose those cognitive skills. So I think the more important goal for us to focus on is how do we teach, instead of thinking of it in terms of a chatbot, how do we teach thinking, leveraging AI at scale? So that's my take.
Thank you. And before the other two go, I just want to summarize what I've been hearing so far. It's really interesting. So seems like there are probably two dimensions to responsible use. On one side, there is responsibility in the creation of these AI tools, of these AI experiences, of these AI curriculums and programs, which both of you were commenting on. And then there's responsibility in our consumption of it, in our utilization of it. Kind of there are best practices maybe to enforce. Just like we know that it's probably not great to spend a lot of time on social media, and there is a lot of onus of the responsibility on the companies that build social media experiences, and a lot of it on us as consumers. And so an AI curriculum or an AI literacy curriculum can expose the learner to possibly both dimensions, the dimensions of kind of responsible and meaningful consumption and utilization of it, which you were commenting on, and then the other side also, the tool creation of it, how we can be more intentional about building tools that aren't necessarily perpetuating biases or necessarily creating undesirable outcomes. Great, my job playing teacher is bad. Harikumar, please.
I can just share that because as an organization at Project Tech for Dev, we develop tech solutions for non-profits. And so while for us our end user is a non-profit, but actually the non-profit is using the technology to reach to their end beneficiaries. So when it comes to building trust, I will also cite an example of where I actually saw on the field how trust, easily breaks when you are designing solutions. But just before that, I want to share, if we are talking about education, I feel trust, the first thing that, you build trust in something is when you don't fear. You do not think that, because we've been listening, right? Like AI is going to take my job. Is it making me, I am not needed anymore. So when you're working from that space where, we bring out the narrative that it is more for, consider, say, for example, a chatbot as a thinking partner for yourself. So you see it complementing what you are doing. It takes away the way you narrate it is also, I'm using technology or AI to do away with the manual work that you are doing. So, for example, students might be sending you a lot of assessments, right? Now, can the AI be used to do evaluation of those and then give summarized outputs to the teacher so that she could focus more on, giving feedback to the student and personalizing that. So she or he is spending more time, the teacher here, with the student, and all that data crunching, drawing insights was being done by AI. So we really need to know where we are using technology, playing to its strength. So I feel trust comes one from the space that it is not there to remove you, it's only there to help you get better in what you are doing. And I would say another piece, generally also as human beings, if you are fulfilling my pain points or, technology is helping you solve for the low hanging things. For example, today, if a teacher is in the classroom, what's one of the biggest pain point that she might have? Maybe lesson planning, which she needs to do regularly. So can technology help her in that? Can you help solve that problem for the teacher? So when she starts seeing those things, the technology in that light, I'm sure, the trust factor will build in. And definitely when you're using technology, there has to be consistency, there has to be contextualization. And this is where I'll just cite an example of where we were using a chatbot, and it was again, government has a lot of policy documents, and we wanted the government officials on the ground to be able to query those policy documents, whenever they wanted while they were in the field. Now, we should also think these end beneficiaries who are rural women in this case, they were quite intelligent. So they started thinking, they first started asking questions to the bot, which they already knew answers to. Because they knew this was a new shining thing that was given to them. So they were validating how this is working. Then two different users asking the same question and then seeing is the bot responding, giving the same answer to both of them. So again, so all these things were helping build trust in the solution that you were asking them to use. So I feel the way you are designing your solution is of utmost importance. That makes or breaks the stickiness onto the service. So really you need to focus on your end beneficiary because they are smart. We shouldn't think that they are, illiterate. I'm talking about a section of them. So yeah, you need to really see that's how trust gets built, how well your solution is designed and how well you've tested it for the different scenarios. Thank you.
I think two very quick points and building on a few of Erica's as well, and responsible use of AI and keeping our children right in the center. How do you train them to use AI responsibly? Two important points here. One, I think the role of teachers and what do you define as curriculum? The word curriculum has become really loose today in terms of you build something and then you call it curriculum. It's not really. Essentially, what is it that you build and how that curriculum is going to be rendered and how do children consume it? So, very quick examples from lived experiences. So, for example, our AI curriculum, a lesson on using chatbots. Now, when that's in the classroom, the teacher enables, you can either put it on a pilot mode or a co-pilot mode. she puts it on a pilot mode. A child would say, write me an essay on my mother. Tuck, 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 tuck. Make it 13 lines only. Tuck, tuck, tuck again. And then she shows, that. And then she, without telling them, she enables a co-pilot mode, where again she says, okay, now I want you all to write an essay on my mother, and then this time take 1 hour to do that. And the children write, okay, essay on my mother. Little prompt saying, I can't write it for you. Do you have something which you want to upload? And I can help you refine it. So then the kids think, okay, let's just write something, and they upload something saying, okay, well started. Typically how ChatGPT does. But it's about, the point I'm making here is the importance of how there is a rich curriculum, and then the role of the teacher in the classroom. I'm also imagining a classroom where there is no chatbot. The teacher is getting children to become, he is a chatbot. आप इसको कुछ पूछोगे, and she's trained that child that what instructions he has to take, and how that whole process is explained to children. And when you keep doing this regularly, is how you impart that in our children. It's something that we can try our best, and then it's about leaving it for them to sort of go and explore in the world. So there is some limitations on that, but we're making a humble attempt to do that.
Amazing. And we'll actually continue hearing from other entrepreneurs right after this session who will be sharing a lot of the innovations that they've been building. I'm very excited. I know a couple of them really well, and I'm very excited to hear from them as well after our panel is done. I'm going to bring us to our second to last or last question based on how long it takes for us to get through this. I would like to kind of bring all of this together and kind of acknowledge that we have people here who represent various institutions, come from various perspectives and vantage points, and I'm curious to know what is the role of these institutions to making this a reality. We have government representatives, we have people representing the non-profit sector, we have people representing the private sector, we have people in this room kind of who represent academia and research. Curious to know, I'll ask you two questions. One is, as a representative of X, what do you think you should be doing or you are doing to creating an environment where we can have an AI education program move to scale for all our children? And then what would you say is your one ask or request to the other stakeholders in this space? And I would love for you to use this time to make your request. We have a lot of these representatives in the audience as well. If you can once again comment on your perspective of kind of what it is that you think you should be doing and you are doing for AI literacy, and then what would be your ask to the others on the panel as well as in the audience? And maybe Hari, sir, if you want to go first as the government representative.
So we are not left far off. Our flagship platform is called Diksha. So right now we have something called as Ask Diksha, where we have brought AI intervention. There are multiple other interventions. So we are now able to give all our content in 22 languages. So we are piloting text to text. We're comfortable now. We've been using Bashni. And text to speech, speech to text is something still we are figuring out. We're also working with IIT Madras on this. And decent amount of success, let's say. And we are also working on an Indian Sign Language. So we have, for people who don't know, we are the largest media buyer in India. We run 200 TV channels as part of PMA Media program. So we have one specific channel for Indian Sign Language. So there we are trying to put any video that we do in Diksha. We have more than 3.6 lakh content. So anything on that, can we also do an Indian Sign Language? So it becomes difficult for me to get an interpreter, do it and then embed it. So that we are trying the use of AI there. So for kids and parents, like I said earlier, little bit I'll comment. For kids, we have something called as Ijadi Bitara. Even though we say it is for kids, it's actually not for kids, it's for their parents. So how many of you tell bedtime stories to your kids? You don't do. You give them YouTube and say, okay, Coco Melon, watch all those videos, go, now go to sleep. Right? Instead of that, we're saying, bring back your folk phone. Your old stories that your granny, they used to tell, now we are bringing it through this Ijadi Bitara. Let the parents listen in their choice of language. Right now we support 11, we are expanding to 22. Then they can go tell the kid. We are saying, don't give the mobile to your kid, but you tell them a story, you first listen, then you tell. We have something called as Guru Mitra for the lesson plan that we are talking about, right? So we're working with the foundation for that. So where we are trying to teach teachers how they can do lesson plan and personalize it and do all those things. And for kids, at least for me, when I was in school and college, no one came and said, "Oh, you have this in the entire university, you can do all these things." All you had is three options: engineer, doctor, lawyer. Typically, right? So at least now the kids are aware of what. So we have something called as Vidyarthi Mitra, basically the career guidance. So we have 500 job cards. So it tells them what they need to do, starting from 9th onwards. So these are the interventions that we do, which is visible to the public. Which is not visible to the public. I will not steal the limelight from few of the states who are here. So Andhra is doing very well. Assam is doing very well. UP, there are started something. So we have something called as Vidya Samiksha Kendra. It is their network operating center for education. The states monitor. So if a kid is not turning up to school for 3 days, the alarm bells go. Because that turns out into out of school children. Potential. So we have been able to actually crunch the data, identify when they turn out into out of school children based on the area. So now we study past years' performance. So that is where we are actually using. So this is behind the scenes use of AI, where we are not telling them. But we are starting it as pilot. So basically, with the submission Kendra is based on a 6A principle. We started with that and then slowly building on the others. But we are actually able to get a lot of insights into it. Now, can we do it all alone? That will also answer your second question. Definitely not. We will need partners like you. The biggest challenge that we have with respect to AI curriculum and AI literacy, if I want to go build it to all the schools, 14.97 lakh schools. Can we do it alone? No. Unless you all come into the ecosystem, help us take this. Now, if I say only computer science teachers can go teach AI, it is cross-cutting. It is no longer a vertical, horizontal. It is everywhere. It's the matrix that you see outside, right? Where they put the thread across all the boards. That's how AI has become. So unless ecosystem partners come to us and will help us, then we can make it a reality. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. But we definitely have a lot of interventions, which is upfront for the public, which are also behind the scene. And we work with all the people. In fact, is helping us migrate specifically for teachers. Now, how we improve that? So slowly you build something on AI, help teachers build on top of it. Now they can do confident teaching experience. Otherwise, it becomes difficult. That's my take.
Thank you. Next is always so refreshing to listen to government talking, so forward-looking, and it's really inspiring. I couldn't agree more on the whole idea of collaborating and collaborating a lot more, something which is very hard for all of us to do. There's a lot of room for more collaboration. I'm going to use this time to very quickly make an ask from our side. At code.org, we are on a mission to ensure that every child understands AI and is ready to thrive in an AI-enabled world. If you are anyone who's inspired by this mission, you do work in this area either as an organization which works in schools, and has scale and wants to bring in AI curriculum, or you're a funder, or if you're someone who wants to volunteer with us, there's lots that we're doing around, language, machine outputs which are going to be translated and localized to India. I'd really love for you to be here, me and my colleague Sai Prasad Sali, we are here. We'd love to have conversations, we'd love to see how we can partner, how we can collaborate a lot more. This is just that need which is so right and the time is urgent, and we'd love to hear from you, and I want to have a side conversation.
No, definitely. So on that point, right, in fact, next 12th and 13th, Ministry of Education is doing a Bharat Education AI Conclave at Bharat Mandapam. So we are inviting all the, so in fact, the reason I got delayed was we are in a call for that. So we are inviting all states. We are telling the states to bring in their partners. States are not doing it individually, right? So they work with all their partners. Unless we build all the ecosystem, I would strongly recommend you get a stall there, put up a stall, because we are talking about what we need and what you have to offer so that we can build an ecosystem out of it.
And again, I really love the energy on both sides here. I know we are reaching the end of our time, so I'll ask the rest of my panelists, are there any pressing thoughts or comments that you all would like to add to this final question that was shared?
So, the way I like to think about it is, what's the heart, mind, and soul of education? When I think about heart, and I'm using the word education broadly, to include things like skilling. When it comes to heart, what does it? It's what makes us essentially unique from AI, bots, robots. And so one of the things, I'm going to try to stick to some examples. One of the things, platforms that we built, we call it Guide GPT, but the idea is you rehearse consequential conversations because so much of our work is around communicating difficult things, communicating important things. So let's say you're a hotel worker, or let's say you're a teacher having to communicate something to another parent about their child's performance. So you have these rehearsals, experiences with an AI bot that essentially does role play. So that's the heart. On the mind side, and I've alluded to this earlier, it's like how do you help stimulate thinking, right? Really thinking with and leverage AI to do that. So what we have is this, you have questions, and there are various types of questions. You can have questions where there's a clear answer, and there are questions where you just need to see a thought process. So what we do is we have this platform where we have guided conversations. So you specify the starting point and you specify the ending point. And in between, it can go in a variety of different ways. And you keep nudging the student to think, like, why are you thinking about it this way? Would you think about it that way? So we're trying to use AI instead of being a shortcut to really hone those thinking mechanisms. And on the soul front, I think we talk a lot about AI, but really what we're trying to solve for is motivation. If you look at a world where knowledge is easy to access and knowledge becomes a commodity, then really what you need to solve for is motivation. Because today we already live in a very information rich world, whether it's YouTube or Wikipedia. So I have this, actually I have this personal project. So I started it on a small scale with my own kids. So I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. Those answers should have come a little faster, but they 13 and 16, sorry. And what they do is, I have them interview interesting people. And so they've been doing this for the last 8 years. They've interviewed, prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners. And the reason behind the interviews are, and these people have obviously been interviewed many times, and everyone knows what they do. But the most fascinating insight for me is we were all the same at 5 years old, right? So how do you have that arc from 5 to becoming, whether a chemist or becoming a teacher or becoming a sports person, without directing people towards certain careers? Like you talk about, the engineer, the lawyer, and I know I followed the stereotype, I'm the engineer, but how do you let them see the best they can be, and so that they can identify with people and say, okay, I like math, I could do this. I don't like math, but I could still do this, and I could achieve something great and be the top of my field. So if anyone is interested in collaborating on any of these 3 initiatives, I'd love to have a longer conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. I will just say I feel very inspired that this is one of those few topics where we have so much alignment across all different stakeholders, and that gives me a lot of hope that there is an opportunity, there is a moment in history where we're at right now where we can actually come together and do real meaningful work in possibly advancing literacies of this kind for our children, for the country, which will hopefully return in many, many powerful and meaningful ways in the long term. I will request all of you to join me in thanking my amazing panelists with a round of applause. Everyone is here for the rest of the day, so please feel free to reach out directly if you would like to continue the conversation. Thanks, everyone. Yes, please, you can share a final.
So, no, it's time of 5 minutes ago. So, I wanted to harp on the motivation point. So, how many of you were aware that today at 10 a.m., Pariksha Pe Charcha went live? Honorable Prime Minister actually did that. So, if you have not got a chance to watch it because you were here, be fortunate enough, it's still available on YouTube. And Honorable Prime Minister actually touched upon AI in education with the kids. So that's the amount and that's the motivation where we get from. That's the importance that we also attribute. Why we are looking for all these conflicts, why we want to collaborate, for the fact that it's also from the top. Everyone are cognizant of the fact that this is there and how it's going to impact us. So let's all join hands.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you for highlighting that as well. And thank you everyone for having us, giving us the opportunity to spend this time.
Thank you so much for that thought-provoking discussion. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Dr. Aditya, for wonderfully moderating the session.